What is up, my dudes? We are back again with another video. Today we are going to be talking about one of my all-time favorite Orioles moments. Being an Orioles fan, there hasn't been a lot of those recently, which is why we're going back 8 years. Now that I think about that, that is kind of insane that it was that long ago. But the 2014 ALDS isn't a series that you probably remember unless you're an Orioles fan. And if you're a Tigers fan, you probably try and not remember this series. Delmon Young will forever be known for a clutch go-ahead 3-run double that allowed for the Orioles to take the lead in a tight Game 2 of a series in which the Orioles swept the Tigers. But let's put on the brakes. We'll make our way to this moment before we relive this glorious occasion. For Orioles fans like myself, this series is definitely one that you're proud of. The Orioles were underdogs by a wide margin against a Tigers team that had 2 established Cy Young winners in Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, and 2 future Cy Young winners in Rick Porcello and David Price. Drew Smyly and Anibal Sanchez rounded out the rotation, forming a formidable 6-man rotation. Let's look at their pitching stats during the regular season. Scherzer was definitely the front man of this 6-piece band, in which he led the way in terms of games started, 33, innings pitched, 220 1/3, and ERA with a 3.15. He even had the best win-loss record, 18-5. Now, I'm sure you're assuming Verlander had a dominant season like Scherzer. However, 2014 was a rough go for Verlander. He managed a 4.54 ERA, which is very uncharacteristic for a guy who has a 3.33 career ERA. 4.54 was the second highest ERA of his career, only behind his 4.84 ERA in the 2008 season. He still was a reliable innings eater at the very least, tossing 206 innings even over 32 starts, retaining a winning record of 15-12. Rick Porcello is the third man in the rotation. He also exceeded 200 innings, throwing 204 2/3 innings across 32 appearances, 31 of those being starts. He, like Scherzer, had a sub 3.5 ERA and won 15 games and led the rotation with 3 complete games, all shutouts. The Tigers acquired David Price at the trade deadline in a 3-team trade with the Rays and Mariners. In a small sample size, he was able to make a difference for a Tigers rotation that needed some reinforcements for a playoff run. Price accumulated a 3.59 ERA in 77 2/3 innings over 11 starts and picked up a complete game. Anibal Sanchez and Drew Smyly combined to have the stats of one real solid pitcher, combining to throw 231 1/3 innings and had ERAs under 4. The Tigers bullpen, however, was a bit of a problem. It wasn't bad, but it certainly wasn't a stable of guys you felt confident getting the job done in innings 7 through 9. Al Albuquerque was arguably their most reliable arm, with a 2.51 ERA in 72 games for Detroit. Phil Koch and Ian Kroll, their 2 main lefties, had ERAs approaching 4. Jabba Chamberlain and Joakim Soria were 2 pitchers that make an appearance in the lead-up of Delmon Young's legendary at-bat. Chamberlain had a 3.57 ERA in 63 innings, and Soria only appeared in 13 games, with an unimpressive 4.91 ERA, although he was limited by an oblique injury most of the season. Joe Nathan, with a 4.81 ERA, was their closer, saving 35 games this year. Joe Nathan typically was a lot better than an almost 5 ERA. However, his sub 1.5 ERA days were ending as he was 39 years old in 2014. As you can see, the Tigers' strength was very clear. However, they still had some strong bats in their lineup that would put pressure on Orioles pitching. Prime Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez both had over 100 RBIs each for the season, and both were high average, high OPS monsters who carried a brunt of the offensive load. JD Martinez wasn't quite Red Sox JD just yet, but still was very capable with an OPS over 900 in 123 games. Now, let's look at the Orioles side of things. The Orioles pitching was in the very solid and above category. There aren't big names like a Scherzer or a Verlander, but the Orioles found ways to hold off offenses for the 5 through 7 innings it took to get to the bullpen, a strength for the Orioles. Chris Tillman had basically the best season of his career. In 34 starts, he tossed 207 1/3 innings and accumulated a 3.34 ERA, his best in a full season. Wei-Yin Chen was the second man, and he delivered with a 3.54 ERA across 185 2/3 innings. Bud Norris was solid in 28 starts, and Miguel Gonzalez had the best ERA of the bunch, albeit in way fewer innings. To round out the rotation, you had Kevin Gausman in his second MLB season, and Orioles legend Ubaldo Jimenez, who may or may not have done this 2 years later in the postseason.
Even though they've turned a lot of double plays. Oh, there's a drive to deep left field, and the ball game is over.
All jokes aside, the Orioles and Tigers were polar opposites in terms of their bullpens. The Orioles had the kind of bullpen that you trusted for more than 1 or 2 innings. The big dog in the bullpen was Zach Britton, who had finally established himself in the bullpen with a breakout year. In 71 games, he put up a 1.65 ERA and saved 37 games, only blowing 4 saves. Darren O'Day was one of the setup guys, and boy was he steady as a rock. A 1.7 ERA in 68 games is the kind of guy you need to get the ball to your closer or to the next guy depending on the situation he was used in. The other big name in the pen was Andrew Miller, who was acquired at the deadline from the Boston Red Sox in exchange for Eduardo Rodriguez. And here's a full circle moment. He just signed a long-term deal with the Tigers this winter. Andrew Miller in 23 games put up a 1.35 ERA and was also a very steady setup man for Zach Britton. Tommy Hunter, Brian Mattis, Ryan Webb, and Brad Brock were all solid enough to get the job done. Tommy Hunter was definitely the standout of the group, throwing 60 games and recording a 2.97 ERA. TJ McFarland was a reliable long man out of the pen, putting up a 2.76 ERA in 58 2/3 innings. Now, to the Orioles offense. The Orioles managed to do what they did without Manny Machado, who had been out most of the season with a knee injury from running the bases, and Chris Davis to a suspension, and Matt Wieters to a season-ending surgery. There were a lot of guys who stepped up in their absences to get the job done. Nelson Cruz, coming off his steroid use, got his career rejuvenated in Baltimore, blasting 40 home runs and driving in 108. Adam Jones had a very nice season, belting 29 home runs and driving in 96. Steve Pearce was another big bat in the lineup, putting up a breakout season with a 930 OPS and hitting 21 home runs in only 338 at-bats. Delmon Young did not have regular at-bats during the season, only getting 242, and recording a solid 302 average and an OPS approaching 800. Now, let's talk about Game 1 of the ALDS. Max Scherzer, coming off a prototypical Mad Max season, gives up 5 earned runs in 7 1/3, only striking out 6 and allowing 2 home runs to Nelson Cruz and J.J. Hardy. J.J. Hardy would play a pivotal role in Game 2 as well, and it may or may not be related to Delmon Young's double. Chris Tillman was solid, only allowing 2 runs in 5 innings before allowing the bullpen to do their thing and only allow 1 run in 4 innings of work. The biggest surprise of this game, however, was the Orioles scoring 8 runs in the 8th inning, 7 of those allowed by the bullpen. The bullpen on paper looked like it would be a problem for the Tigers, and it turned out to be true, for Game 1 at least. On to Game 2. Verlander had a good, not great game in Game 2, allowing 3 earned runs over 5 innings of work, and then Anibal Sanchez took the ball and put up 2 scoreless. Wei-Yin Chen for the Orioles was roughed up, allowing 5 earned runs over 3 2/3 innings. Kevin Gausman came in and stopped the bleeding, only allowing 1 run over 3 2/3 innings of relief. Leading up to the 8th inning, the Tigers were in command of this game from the 4th inning on. Then, Jabba Chamberlain enters the game. To start out, he gets Alejandro Diaz to ground out to second for the first out, and that's when all hell breaks loose. Adam Jones is hit by a pitch to jumpstart the offense. Nelson Cruz singles to left, moving up Jones to second. Steve Pearce, before he was the MVP of the World Series for the Red Sox years later, singles to right and scores Adam Jones to make it a 6-4 game. Chamberlain's day is done at this point, and in comes Joakim Soria from the bullpen. There's still only 1 out, keep in mind. In steps J.J. Hardy. J.J. Hardy has a great at-bat and draws a walk to load the bases. And now the moment we have been waiting for. Delmon Young comes to the plate. Let's pause. There's 2 things you should know about Delmon Young. First things first, he already has built up a postseason legacy for himself at this point. Funny enough, as a Detroit Tiger just 2 years earlier, he was selected MVP of the ALCS after batting .353 with 2 home runs and 6 RBIs in a 4-game sweep of the Yankees. The second thing you should know about Delmon Young is he likes to swing early in the count. In fact, he loves the first pitch of the at-bat. Now that we have our history of Delmon Young in the postseason, Let's unpause and watch what happens on the first pitch.
Delmon Young, 280 hitter, 8 homers, 15 runs batted in. And everybody knows he's ready to fire on the first one. Bases loaded. Young swings, line drive. That is down and to the wall. Cruz is in. Pearce is in. Hardy around third. He's going to try to score. And safe. The Orioles have the lead.
This, ladies and gentlemen, might be one of the greatest moments in Orioles history. And not only that, it might be one of the best slides into home in baseball history. J.J. Hardy sliding into home at just the right time might be one of the greatest things my eyes have ever seen. History repeats itself time and time again, and it's so weird to me how the announcers even had built up this at-bat prior to the go-ahead double. And they even made mention of Delmon's ability to hit the first pitch he sees. Everyone from the booth to the dugouts to the field knew this information except Joakim Soria apparently. Realistically, Soria should have just thrown a ball so low in the dirt that even Vlad Guerrero Sr. couldn't have hit it. The game ended up being a 7-6 win for the Orioles as Zach Britton locked down the save, and they went on the next day to try and sweep the Tigers. Bud Norris would be squaring off against David Price in Game 3 of the ALDS. Both pitchers were excellent this game. David Price's only mistake of the game was allowing a 2-run home run to Nelson Cruz in the 6th inning, and then went on to throw 8 innings of 2-run ball, and Bud Norris allowed no runs over 6 in the 3rd innings. Miller picks up the hold, and Britton in a 2-run game allowed a run manufactured by the Tigers before sealing a second game of the series to send the Orioles to the ALCS. While the Orioles eventually went on to play the Royals and lost 4 straight, which kind of anticlimactic considering all the buildup in this video, I still will always remember this postseason for the unlikely situations that arose and panned out in the Orioles' favor. Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, and David Price all were known and feared names across the league, and the fact that the Orioles went up against that with Chris Tillman, Wei-Yin Chen, and Bud Norris and win that series is baffling. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of Baseball Storytime. If you did, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.
I'm not having any fun.